The auditorium buzzed with electricity as the world's top innovators gathered beneath a ceiling of flickering spotlights and blinking drones, but all of it, the chatter, the spectacle, the 60 million live viewers, fell away the moment Elon Musk leaned forward with a smirk and said, "Kayleigh, mind if I ask you something simple?" The panel moderator tensed, sensing something was coming, but said nothing. This wasn't just any event. This was the Vanguard Forum, a high-stakes summit broadcast live across 5 continents, where billionaires, world leaders, and digital architects debated the future of civilization. Sitting across from Elon in a crisp white suit with her hair pulled into a sharp ponytail, Kayleigh didn't flinch. Her hands were folded calmly in her lap, her posture perfect, eyes locked. "Ask," she said. Elon's voice dropped, casual but calculating. "If AI replaces 90% of jobs, what makes you think you're still relevant?" The question sliced through the stage like a scalpel, deadly in its simplicity, laced with dismissal, designed to make her crumble or grovel. But Kayleigh blinked once, tilted her head, and smiled. There was a full second of silence before she leaned into her mic and said, "Because I built the future's spine." 5 words, that was it, and the moment they left her mouth, the entire auditorium went still, as though the air had been vacuumed out of the room. Elon stared, for once, visibly confused. The moderator blinked. The other panelists glanced at each other, and then, an eruption. The live stream chat exploded in emojis and question marks. Newsrooms scrambled to transcribe what had just happened. Elon's smirk dissolved, and his pupils darted. "Excuse me?" he said, voice half amused, half threatening. "You heard me," Kayleigh replied, not raising her voice but sharpening it just enough to make the front row lean in. She wasn't rattled. She wasn't being cute. She was, for the first time in that entire summit, dangerous. "I built the infrastructure your toys depend on. I wrote the protocols your bots run on. You built the screen, Elon. I built the code that tells it what to show." The panel gasped. Elon shifted. The moderator tried to step in, fumbling for a neutral follow-up, but Kayleigh was already turning the heat up. "Let's not pretend your satellites beam thoughts out of thin air. You rely on frameworks. Those frameworks run on backbones, and I'm the one who architected the system 5 years before you even acknowledged it existed." Elon started to respond but froze. Someone in the audience had stood up and clapped, just once, but loud. The cameras swung toward the noise and revealed a surprising face. An ex-NSA director, now a private tech consultant, nodding slowly. The audience murmured. "Kayleigh," Elon said, this time with steel behind his words, "you've made a lot of claims over the years." She didn't blink, and not one of them's ever been disproven. His lips parted, searching for an angle, but none came. The crowd smelled it. Hesitation. Elon Musk, the man known for brutal retorts and unrelenting dominance, was hesitating. "You're a provocateur," he finally muttered, trying to regain footing. "No," she said calmly. "I'm an architect. You provoke that I prepare." A few more audience members clapped, then more, until the summit sound crew scrambled to adjust audio levels. "Then tell us," Elon said suddenly, changing tactics. "What exactly did you build?" His voice was louder now, grasping for control, but Kayleigh stayed seated, eyes steady. "The defense grid that stopped the southeast blackout," she said. "The AI patch that reversed the facial recognition glitch your neural net team caused last year. The encryption bridge between EarthNet and Marscom." Elon blinked hard, as if he'd been slapped. "Those projects weren't public. Hell, some weren't even named yet. That's classified," he muttered. "Not anymore," she said coolly, glancing at the camera. "Hello world." The moderator practically choked on his water as Twitter began catching fire. Hashtags sprang up like wildfire. Hashtag Kayleigh versus Elon. Hashtag 5-word shock. Hashtag future spine. Elon sat back, finally quiet, his lips sealed in a thin, white line. He wasn't used to this. Not being outmaneuvered, not having the sharpest voice in the room. "So that's your game," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Kayleigh smiled again, this time with just a hint of a blade in it. "No game, just facts." The auditorium roared. Somewhere backstage, Kayleigh's assistant was fielding 37 interview requests per minute, and across the world, every viewer watching, whether from a boardroom in Seoul or a cafe in Sao Paulo, had the same stunned expression, because in less than 60 seconds, 5 words had changed everything. Elon leaned forward again, trying to salvage control. "That's a big claim, Kayleigh. How do you prove something like that?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled a chip, sleek, translucent, glowing faintly blue, from her jacket pocket and set it gently on the table. "This runs your future," she said. Elon stared at it like it was a grenade. The crowd was silent again. "What is that?" the moderator whispered. "Something his companies depend on, but don't own," Kayleigh replied. "Not yet." Elon's eyes narrowed. "That's not possible." Kayleigh's voice was calm. "You built rockets that I built roots." And with that, she stood up, gathered her notes, and walked off stage, leaving Elon frozen, the world watching, and the silence deafening. The moment Kayleigh's heels clicked off the stage floor and the broadcast cut to a trembling panel-wide wide shot, a storm ignited across the internet so fast it seemed scripted. News outlets fumbled to recap the 5-word detonation. Influencers live-reacted with mouths agape. and hashtags like #FutureSpine and #Kayleigh Shockwave dominated global trends before the moderator could even thank the audience for attending within 15 minutes. Clips of the exchange were edited into TikTok montages, reaction videos, GIFs, and slow-motion breakdowns, each dissecting the tilt of Elon's head, the steel in Kayleigh's tone, the eerie blue glow of the chip she left behind. While some hailed her as the true architect of tomorrow, others labeled her arrogant, accusing her of manufacturing the moment for clout. But neither side could ignore the fact that Elon, the man known for eviscerating rivals in 280 characters or less, hadn't tweeted a single thing, not one word. His silence was louder than any thread. Meanwhile, Kayleigh's inbox became a war zone. Investors, politicians, hackers, CEOs, military contractors, whistleblowers, and podcasters all clawing for a moment of her time, hoping to align with or dismantle her narrative. Within hours, her Wikipedia page was vandalized, then locked. Anonymous sources from 3 major outlets published half-truths about her education, claiming she never completed her Stanford thesis, even though she'd graduated a full year early and written code that powered satellite-to-AI encryption while still in dorm housing. The smears didn't stop there. A well-timed leak showed Kayleigh once declined a partnership with Tesla on grounds of ethical misalignment, and now pundits were spinning it as a vendetta, a long-brewing personal feud disguised as a tech debate. Major newspapers flooded with op-eds. Is Kayleigh the real threat to tech's future? And was Elon set up? Panels of aging tech bros clucked on morning shows, suggesting Kayleigh's rise was suspiciously theatrical. But what truly stung wasn't the outside noise. It was who inside her circle began to falter. One of her top engineers, someone she'd mentored since MIT, publicly distanced himself in a tweet claiming, "Kayleigh's vision isn't ours. We never agreed to her plan." A board member of her nonprofit Quantum Roots resigned without notice, citing irreconcilable views on transparency. And just like that, the scaffolding of her carefully assembled world began to creak under the pressure. But Kayleigh wasn't idle. She watched it all unfold from a high-rise apartment overlooking downtown Tokyo, silent, sipping matcha, as headlines scrolled across her wall-sized transparent screen. She said nothing for 12 hours. Then, at exactly 6:06 a.m. Universal Time Coordinated, she posted a single sentence on every platform. "The spine bends for no one." The internet convulsed. The post amassed 7 million likes in under 4 minutes. But just as it seemed she was reclaiming the wheel, a new headline dropped, one that stopped everyone cold. Leaked DM shows Elon praising Kayleigh. She's 10 years ahead of US. The message, dated 6 months prior, showed Elon privately confessing to an inner circle Discord group that Kayleigh's quantum infrastructure made Neuralink look like a toy, and that, if we don't partner with her, we're going extinct. The leak shattered the narrative. The public saw a man who had tried to humiliate her on stage while secretly admiring and fearing her work. Overnight, the tide began to turn. Tech leaders started issuing statements supporting Kayleigh's efforts, cautiously at first, then in floods. She received a private letter from a NATO cybersecurity division inviting her to brief their AI task force. But even as global admiration surged, Kayleigh's internal trust was fractured. She called an emergency meeting with her executive team, and out of the 12 seats around the obsidian conference table, only 7 were filled. "I need you to tell me," she said, not blinking. "Who here thinks I overstepped?" Silence. Then a hand rose, then another. 2 of her earliest supporters, people who'd followed her since she coded on bathroom walls in high school, voiced concerns that she was courting danger by going this public with infrastructure the world wasn't ready to see. Kayleigh didn't shout, she didn't cry. She thanked them for their honesty and told them the door was open if they needed to walk through it. 2 days later, they were gone. That night, while the city slept beneath her Tokyo balcony, Kayleigh stood alone in her workspace, surrounded by glowing panels and humming servers, reviewing every move, every risk, every name she trusted. She closed her eyes, breathed deep, and whispered the 5 words to herself, not out of arrogance, but as a reminder, because I built the future's spine. She turned to her desk, activated a new protocol, and began drafting a private dossier labeled Contingency Code Atlas. It was then that her encrypted terminal blinked red, a direct message from Elon Musk himself. Subject line, "You win. No greeting, no context. Just 2 lines. Meet me, I'll bring the truth, but I don't think you'll like it." Kayleigh stared at the message, expression unreadable. Then she deleted it without replying. But deep inside her server room, a dormant subroutine activated, one she hadn't touched in over 4 years, marked LNPRXY, full trace. She wasn't running from war, she was preparing for it, and war was exactly what Elon had just guaranteed. IT began with a sound, barely perceptible, no louder than a breath, but Kayleigh had trained herself to hear what most would ignore, and when the server in her underground vault emitted a 3-tone chirp at 3:47 a.m., she knew the signal meant only one thing: the LNPRXY trace was complete. The The screen dimmed, flickered, and then rendered a constellation of IP locations, timestamps, aliases, and financial transactions, all threading together like a luminous spiderweb, and at the center, pulsating in red, sat Elon Musk's personal data beacon. But what stunned her wasn't that he'd been watching her. It was how long he'd been doing it. The logs went back years. Not weeks, not months, years. Elon hadn't just monitored her systems. He had tried to replicate them, fund startups in her shadow, and in one documented case, steal a prototype design by reverse engineering her team's defunct quantum language project, Aria. Kayleigh sat frozen in her seat, heart steady, mind racing. Not in anger, but in clinical precision. She knew now that his challenge on live TV had never been spontaneous. It was premeditated, his final attempt to invalidate her before she could do what he hadn't dared. Release the next evolution of infrastructure, Atlas Protocol, her upcoming global platform for decentralized intelligence. But now she had proof. Proof he feared her. Proof he tried to suppress her. Proof he might have crossed criminal lines to do it. As dawn bled across the Tokyo skyline, Kayleigh summoned only one person, Suri, her oldest confidant and current director of strategic security. He's been inside our code, Kayleigh said without turning from the screen. He's trying to build a clone of Atlas, but he doesn't have the spine, literally. Suri's face went pale. You mean, exactly, Kayleigh cut in. He's missing the fundamental key, the fractal core algorithm I developed under NDA for the defense grid. And if he tries to force it, the entire system will collapse, possibly take down satellites with it. That's when Suri handed her a file, physical, sealed, marked with the Department of Defense insignia and her own name, Kayleigh Rowan, printed in stark black ink. This was dropped anonymously at our DC office, Suri said. Inside was this. She opened the folder. Inside, printed on redacted paper, was an email thread between Elon's aerospace subsidiary and a private data mining firm. The subject line? Project Eclipse, alternative to Atlas Spine. The documents outlined a project attempting to bypass Kayleigh's encryption model by embedding neural command triggers into consumer-grade chips. Without user consent, IT wasn't just unethical, IT was weaponized data manipulation. Kayleigh read it twice, then closed the folder. He was going to roll this out as a surprise upgrade, she said quietly, and call it benevolence. Suri nodded. Unless we go public with this, they'll paint you as paranoid. But Kayleigh didn't flinch. Then we show the world what paranoia looks like, and what happens when you earn it. That night, on a private channel used only for emergencies, she summoned 4 people from different corners of the world. A Nobel-winning ethicist, a defector from Elon's ex-company, an anonymous security cryptographer known only as Gamma, and a quietly powerful U.S. senator who owed Kayleigh her entire campaign. They gathered on a ghost call routed through 7 continents and no faces, only voices. And when Kayleigh laid the facts bare, Elon's attempt to copy, corrupt, and launch a synthetic clone of her life's work, they didn't hesitate. The senator promised a closed-door intelligence briefing. The ethicist pledged an open paper. Gamma offered a live server breach into Eclipse's dormant code to extract proof. And the defector smiled. You're late, he said. I've been waiting for someone brave enough to take him down. But Kayleigh wasn't here for revenge. She was here for justice. Over the next 48 hours, Kayleigh's team released a controlled drip of digital breadcrumbs. Small but damning, unnamed documents, timestamp screenshots, anonymous testimonials, each leak more precise than the last, and each one drew blood. Elon's companies began trending for all the wrong reasons. Whistleblowers alleging AI misuse, engineers quietly resigning, former interns leaking voice memos of Elon ranting about Kayleigh's insufferable genius. One clip went viral, Elon saying, "If she gets Atlas online before us, we're not just behind, we're obsolete." In the middle of the firestorm, Elon finally broke his silence on X, his tweet. The real question is, does she even know what Atlas is capable of? Kayleigh didn't respond. Not immediately. Because by then, she was already 2 steps ahead, finalizing the last phase of Atlas Ethical Launch Protocol, a blockchain-sealed consent system that required user acknowledgement at every tier of interaction. Meanwhile, underground forums speculated, did Elon actually know what Atlas would do once live? Because insiders were whispering that Atlas wasn't just a platform.it, was an interface.an adaptive, learning conscious digital lattice that could rewrite the way machines and humans interact, not by command but by collaboration.it wasn't a tool.it was a bridge. And Elon wanted to own the bridge. Kayleigh wanted the world to walk it freely. At 2:14 a.m., Kayleigh received an encrypted file from Gamma. Inside was a video, grainy, time-stamped, dated 8 months before the summit. In the footage, Elon stood in a steel chamber, watching a test drone shudder and explode as a prototype failed to accept a modified Atlas clone. He turned to the camera, unaware. It was recording, and muttered, "She's too far ahead. We have to discredit her. Or buy her." Kayleigh paused the video. She stared at the screen. Then she hit send all. The file went to 10 major media outlets, 10 senators, and 10 competing CEOs. The world deserved the truth. Elon Musk didn't just fear her. He tried to erase her, and now the erasure would be permanent, but not hers. The walls were closing in, and Kayleigh was just getting started. When the subpoena arrived in a titanium-sealed envelope envelope with the official seal of the United States Congress embedded in holographic relief. Kayleigh wasn't surprised. She was expecting it. What did surprise her was the charge: potential cyber interference, fraudulent representation of national security assets, and willful manipulation of public infrastructure narratives. It was political theater, Elon's last desperate chess move, dressed in red tape and wrapped in bureaucracy, and it was ugly. Within 24 hours, headlines screamed, "Kayleigh called to Washington over Atlas breach," while anonymous sources close to Musk painted her as an unstable outlier playing God with code. Aides inside the Senate Intelligence Committee leaked her itinerary, prompting protesters and supporters alike to gather outside the Capitol with neon signs. Some reading hashtag spine of the future, others screaming, "Stop Kayleigh now." She arrived at the hearing draped in a matte gray suit, no jewelry, no entourage, only her and a thin black portfolio containing exactly 3 items: her original Atlas manifest, the Eclipse clone report, and an exhibit marked KVR-37, classified until now. The room was packed. The panel consisted of 9 members, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 1 neutral chairperson who looked anything but impartial. C-SPAN's viewership quadrupled in the opening hour. The world watched as she raised her hand and took the oath, every camera in the room capturing her calm expression, her unwavering gaze, her silent strength. "Ms. Rowan," the chair began, "we're here today not to vilify innovation but to safeguard national integrity." Kayleigh nodded once. "Then you'll understand why I brought receipts." A ripple of unease moved across the room. The first senator to question her was Senator Radcliffe, a self-proclaimed AI ethics expert who once accepted $12 million in campaign funds from one of Elon's shell companies. "Is it true," he asked, folding his hands dramatically, "that you constructed the Atlas infrastructure with unverified foreign contractors?" Kayleigh blinked slowly. "No, but it's true you consulted with those same contractors for your failed cyber integrity bill last year." The gallery gasped. Radcliffe stammered, I don't see how that's relevant." "Because you're implying foreign threat," she interrupted. "But you invited it into the legislative pipeline." The chairperson banged his gavel. "Ms. Rowan, please refrain from questioning senators." "Respectfully," she said, voice cold as glass, "I'm not questioning them, I'm holding them accountable." The next senator tried a softer approach. "Why not release Atlas to public oversight if you have nothing to hide?" Kayleigh leaned forward. "Because oversight isn't neutral, it's political. And this protocol isn't a political weapon, it's a humanitarian framework." The panel shifted, growing visibly uncomfortable with her poise. "So you're saying Atlas isn't a threat?" "Atlas isn't a sword," Kayleigh said. "It's a spine. You don't use it to conquer, you use it to stand." And then came the real attack. A junior senator from California slid a file across his desk, sneering, "Then explain this. Your code signature embedded in Eclipse's test build." The room went quiet, cameras zoomed in. Kayleigh didn't even blink. "That's impossible," she said. "My code was never shared." "Then how do you explain the match?" he asked, gloating. "Simple," she said. "They didn't get it from me." And she reached into her portfolio, pulling out exhibit KVR-37, a chip identical to the one she'd laid before Elon weeks earlier, except this one glowed purple instead of blue. "This," she said, lifting it carefully, "is a physical security seed, unique to my builds. Every time Atlas is copied, the seed splits into a time-stamped quantum fragment. It's how I track theft in real time." The senators stared, unsure what to believe, until she tapped her tablet and streamed a projection behind her, a timeline of Eclipse's development, annotated with the exact moments her seed detected theft. The room erupted, gasps, yells, murmurs. Live comments flooded the official YouTube stream, and the hearing moderator turned pale. "You're telling us that Elon Musk stole my code," Kayleigh said flatly, "that he authorized illegal replication, and that Eclipse is not just a clone, it's a risk to every satellite currently orbiting Earth." The chair pounded his gavel. "Enough! These are allegations of catastrophic consequence." Kayleigh nodded. "Exactly. So stop treating them like gossip and start treating them like treason." Someone from the gallery stood up and clapped, then another, and another, until the entire public seating gallery rose, slow but certain, turning the chamber into an impromptu theater of truth. "This hearing is adjourned." The chair bellowed, but the cameras were still rolling, millions were still watching, and as Kayleigh exited the chamber, flanked by 2 stunned interns and a dozen deafening reporters, she turned once, just briefly, to face the building she just cracked open. "They called me to silence me," she whispered to Suri, who waited at the curb. "But all they gave me was a stage." And as the doors behind her closed, notifications pinged into her feed. The United Nations had requested an emergency summit on digital ethics. 3 senators had resigned, and Elon Musk had just tweeted for the first time in weeks. 3 words. "We go live." Kayleigh stared at it, and without skipping a beat, posted back, "Then I hope you're ready." By the time Kayleigh's plane touched down in Geneva for the emergency United Nations summit, her 5 words, "Because I built the future's spine," were no longer just a quote. They were a declaration, a movement, a digital uprising engraved on the very fabric of the internet. In Mumbai, students were spray painting the phrase across university walls. In Berlin, coders wrote open-source libraries labeled "Future Spine" in her honor. In Cairo, AI ethicists quoted her during policy reforms on digital transparency. But what truly signaled the turning of the tide wasn't just the global admiration. It was the way Elon Musk's empire began to fracture under the weight of silence, suspicion, and exposure. The first crack came from inside. A lead engineer at Neuralink leaked internal documents proving Eclipse had been deployed in beta testing without proper user consent, including dangerous cognitive implants that caused neurological disturbances in test subjects. Elon responded by tweeting, "Innovation always comes with risk," but it was too late. The fallout was immediate. Lawsuits mounted, sponsors pulled out, SpaceX's next mission was postponed indefinitely due to an anonymous cyber vulnerability warning signed with a single symbol, brain-locked, the unofficial emoji for Atlas. Kayleigh hadn't even spoken publicly since the hearing, but her silence amplified the message tenfold. Atlas nodes began to quietly activate across the globe, powered by her original code and consent-based smart contracts that required no central control. Governments watched in awe as the infrastructure operated without flaws, self-regulating, self-updating, refusing unauthorized access with immutable, blockchain-locked integrity. It wasn't just a platform, it was proof. Proof that transparency could scale. Proof that control wasn't necessary for structure. Proof that Kayleigh had done what no one, not even Elon Musk, had dared. She made power accountable. As markets adjusted, Kayleigh's own private consortium, Spinecore, saw valuation skyrocket past $4.3 trillion in projection. On paper, it was now more influential than Tesla, Neuralink, and X combined. Elon tried to retaliate, first with a smear campaign. Articles appeared from obscure tech blogs funded through shell entities, accusing Kayleigh of past collaborations with digital anarchists. But no proof came forward. Then he tried a more public approach, announcing a live stream titled "Let's Talk About the Future," featuring himself, a panel of experts, and an open call to debate Kayleigh should she grow a spine and show up. She didn't take the bait. Instead, she released a white paper titled "The Ethics of Invisible Infrastructure," outlining exactly how Atlas worked, why it had no backdoor, and how even she could not override its core decisions once activated. The paper went viral, and just like that, every argument that she was a secret tyrant collapsed. That night, Elon held his live stream anyway, but it was a disaster. Viewership tanked. Experts clashed on air. The moderator accidentally revealed that one of the panelists was a paid actor with no real tech credentials. And at one brutal moment, when Elon tried to dismiss Kayleigh's work as unscalable fantasy, a member of his own panel interrupted to say, "Actually, I just switched my company's infrastructure to Atlas last week, and it's outperforming everything we've ever used." Elon's eyes flared. He ended the stream 10 minutes later, with a stammered goodbye and visible frustration. Meanwhile, Kayleigh remained off camera, off social media, letting the world do the talking. In China, a state-run research lab publicly confirmed that their military quantum systems had failed to breach even the outer layer of Atlas encryption. In Brazil, civic engineers used her architecture to restore water distribution via AI prediction during a blackout. In the United States, 36 senators signed a proposal to formally recognize Atlas as the first open, sovereign digital infrastructure model for the next era. But the biggest shock came when the Vatican issued a statement, not just in support of Kayleigh, but endorsing Atlas as an ethical standard for future AI deployment, stating that the spine of truth must be built without ego, fear, or control. It was a poetic slap in the face to Elon's authoritarian image. And then came the moment no one expected. Elon tweeted, just one sentence, "Kayleigh, let's talk privately. No hashtags. No threats. Just a plain olive branch." The media spun into a frenzy. Was this surrender? Was it strategy? But Kayleigh didn't respond publicly. Instead, she traveled quietly off-grid, from Geneva to a small cabin outside Oslo, where she met with the last person who could flip the entire game. Dr. Armin Klein, the man who mentored Elon at the dawn of his first AI endeavor, and who had recently gone dark, vanishing from the public eye. But now, Kayleigh stood across from him, watching him, pace with the weight of a decade of secrets in his tired hands. "He's scared," Armin finally said. "Not of Atlas, not even of you, but of what comes after." Kayleigh folded her arms. "He tried to own it." Armin nodded. "But you didn't." She studied him. "Will you help me end this?" "Only if you let it end himself," he said quietly. And so, the final phase began, not with another viral post or explosive hearing, but with silence. Kayleigh quietly distributed full control of Atlas to 50 neutral servers worldwide. She stepped down from Spinecore's board. She sent one message to her followers: no one owns the future, only the people walking into it. And while the world roared with approval, Elon's board met in secret. His stocks plummeted, his image cracked. His empire, once fireproof, now dripped with gasoline. And still those 5 words, "Because I built the future spine," reverberated in every city, every feed, every innovation room. They weren't just a sentence anymore, they were a revolution. Exactly 1 year after the live summit that changed everything, the skies above Palo Alto were gray with anticipation, not rain, because beneath the overcast light, a silent war was ending where it had begun. Not in labs or courtrooms or live streams, but behind the eyes of the two people who had reshaped the 21st century without ever raising a weapon. Kayleigh stood in a glass atrium overlooking a cascading AI-powered garden. Trees that whispered data between leaves, water that flowed based on global climate patterns, petals that opened when humanity made ethical choices in coding infrastructure, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to breathe deeply. The world had changed. Atlas had matured from revolution to foundation, adopted by 116 countries as the default for civic AI governance, embedded into humanitarian efforts, disaster relief, education, and diplomatic protocols. It was no longer just her spine, it was everyone's. And just as she was preparing to address the Global Ethics Council for the platform's first anniversary, her assistant entered quietly and whispered 3 words. He's here, alone. No camera crews and no entourage. Just Elon Musk, older, paler, not dressed in black but in soft gray, standing in the sun-dappled hallway with his hands in his pockets and something strangely vulnerable behind his eyes. Kayleigh didn't ask for security. She didn't brace herself. She simply nodded and walked down the hallway that separated the future from the past. When she reached him, they stared in silence for what felt like forever. You look lighter, he finally said. That's what happens when you stop trying to carry the world, she replied. You hand it back to the people who live in it. He looked away, jaw tightening. I thought I was helping them. You were, she said, until you weren't. He nodded slowly, like someone accepting the shape of his own grave. I lost everything. Kayleigh tilted her head. You lost control, there's a difference. Elon swallowed. I tried to buy Atlas last week, through a proxy in Qatar. I know, she said. I built the firewall myself. His smile was brief, but sad. It's perfect. You made something incorruptible. No, she corrected. I made something self-correcting. He reached into his coat, pulled out a small device, a drive, silver and simple. This is the last version of Eclipse, the original one. Unmodified. Before the theft. Before the greed. I want you to have it. She stared at it, then took it gently and slid it into her coat without even looking. And what do you want in return? She asked. A place to build again, he said. Something smaller, honest. Kayleigh stepped forward, closer than she'd ever been to him, and searched his face. Not for truth, but for motive. You once said the future belonged to those who built it. I was wrong, Elon whispered. The future belongs to those who protect it. A long silence passed. Then she said the one thing that stunned even him. There's an island project in the Pacific, clean power, AI agriculture, climate stabilization. They need minds, not leaders, minds. Elon blinked. You're inviting me? I'm inviting who you could be, she said. Not who you were. He looked down, then nodded once. Thank you. But as he turned to go, she called out softly, Elon. He paused. You asked me once why I thought I was still relevant in a world of artificial intelligence. He turned, lips parted slightly. She stepped forward. Let me finally answer it. And for the second time in her life, she said 5 words that silenced him completely, because relevance isn't about control. Elon nodded, eyes damp, shoulders slack, and this time, he walked away not as a titan, but as a man. Kayleigh returned to the atrium, activated the drive he gave her, and stored its contents not on a server, but inside a sealed time capsule, labeled before corruption. She wasn't afraid of what had come before, because she'd already designed what came after. That afternoon, she stepped onto the global stage, her voice broadcast in every time zone, in every school and home and institution using Atlas, and she said this: we were never meant to rule machines, we were meant to rule ourselves. The crowd stood, leaders wept, children cheered, and as the stream went dark, 5 words etched themselves into digital walls, satellites, and hearts. Because I built the future's spine. But this time, the world whispered back, and now we all stand.